All right, my name is Moises COF, and I'm pretty sure all of you have heard on the news some corner town bakery or a flower shop in a small town that has decided not to provide services to a gay marriage or a gay ceremony. And I'm here to say that anti-discrimination laws for businesses are unnecessary. And I have three secondary claims to support that fact. One, economic interests prevent discrimination. Two, anti-discrimination laws will actually hurt the consumer base instead of help. And three, few businesses wish to discriminate against consumers in the first place. So starting with number one, I look toward Professor Gorman, who wrote the Concise Encyclopedia of Economics. He shows that in the principles of economics, it is hard to discriminate against a group of people and be competitive towards other companies, knowing that other companies are not willing to discriminate against a group, such as homosexuals, and homosexuals will most likely decide not to provide their business towards that company, and so will other people who support the gay community. That business will eventually run lower profits than it ever has if it had provided services towards homosexuals. Markets will find a way to displace discriminated workers and customers with firms and corporations who don't distinguish money or labor from different people. Professor Gorman provides two examples. One is South Africa in the 1900s, and two is the McCarthy-era Hollywood blacklist actors. So in South Africa, what they had was an economy that was based on mining, but the miners were only interested in hiring white employees. The demand for white employees goes up, the cost for white employees goes up. The demand for black employees goes down, the cost, the wage for a black employee goes down. Eventually what happened was South Africa had a big shift in employees. Instead of a majority of the miners being white, they shifted towards being black. And in the McCarthy era, actors who were publicly announcing communist ideas were blacklisted from any screenings, from any plays, from anything theatrical. But many people liked these actors. They really enjoyed their acting, and they decided to hire them anyways, even despite a lot of sanctions against them. And that's another group that's hurt by these anti-discrimination laws, is the consumer base. So number two, anti-discrimination laws will hurt the consumer base because the anti-discrimination laws effectively will either run the business out, face too many penalties to continue their business, or the government will simply shut this company down. It critically erodes a portion of the economy. Businesses that you previously sought services from that didn't mind discriminative policies that they might have had that you didn't know are completely gone, and your business and their business is completely eliminated. Your trade is done. Price discrimination is something you might have learned in economics. It's something that, if fell under the anti-discrimination laws, could effectively shorten the growth and profit of plenty of businesses who seek to maximize profit by providing different prices to different people, based only on the fact that you're willing to pay more or less for a certain object. Think coupons or late night deals or something like that. This effectively hurts the employer, the employee, and the customer. I look towards J.C. Krempach, a law doctor generalist at the Catholic Lane, who shows us an anti-discrimination movement in Germany who effectively want to repeal a ban on homosexuals donating blood. And I look towards this example because this is the severe case of anti-discrimination laws severely hurting the consumer base. In effect, a larger population in Germany are homosexuals. It's 2% here in the United States. And looking as an example, they're effectively responsible for 61% of the transactions of HIV and AIDS. And looking towards German population in terms of an emergency, they might also effectively have to worry that one of the blood transfusions might have slipped the test and they could effectively get a severe STD that is fatal. And I go on to claim number 3. Few businesses wish to discriminate against consumers. Currently, the number is close to null in terms of percentages, although it's hard to find out which businesses actually do discriminate, since they do not publicly announce it. But those who do, such as the Fortune 100, totals 94% in 2008 and 97% in 2010, who have publicly made policy not to discriminate customer or employee, and this comes from the Human Rights Campaign. Analyze other businesses who do openly discriminate. We do not see a personal vendetta or prejudice, but market exploitation. Hooters discriminates by only hiring attractive women, and the same goes with strip clubs. Female porn actors have salaries 500% larger than their male heterosexual counterparts. Homosexual male porn actors make almost 3 times as much as the male heterosexual actors, and I see no objection to this. And yet this is a small part of the economy. Out of the already small portion of businesses that discriminate, we eliminate another chunk that just only discriminates not out of hate or intolerance, but for maximizing profit. What we are left with are these occasional stories of the bakery or flower shops who are not interested in providing services to a ceremony that goes against their personal beliefs. It's only getting smaller by a review of data graphs of median incomes of white females, black males, and black female rise from respectively 70, 60, and 50% in 1970 to 78, 80, and 70% in 2005, probably higher now in 2015. This statistic was taken by Rittenberg and Tegarthen in their Principles of Microeconomics textbook. So I hope you can all see that from these 3 reasons, anti-discrimination laws are not necessary and in fact can actually be harmful to the population.
All right, the proposition's very clearly stated. I thought you had an excellent preview of what the supporting structure was, and you signpost those points in the body of the speech pretty well. I do think that on the first point that you've got a pretty clear explanation of what you're talking about. There's a theory that you explain, and that's fine. I think it was a little bit problematic because it sounds to me like you're paraphrasing the theory from the context as opposed to quoting directly, and that's a little bit problematic. You apply a couple of examples to that. Those are okay. Again, I'm not sure if those examples come from your economist or if they come from the textbook or someplace else, and so I think that you need to be a little bit more specific about that information. But the first point was relatively clear. The second point I didn't think was quite as clear. There's a whole bunch of information that you present that doesn't really explain why it would not have the impact that you or why it would have the impact that you're saying it would have. There's a theory here that I don't think is completely explained like the first one was, and that is a little bit problematic. I think there's a problem with your examples also. The example of Hollywood, for instance, I think you would discover that there were, in fact, substantial economic consequences and that it took a period of time before people were able to continue working and get back in the business. And the notion that it didn't have an impact in the long run, I think, might be a little bit problematic. If you have more specific data on that, you ought to be citing it. The third point, I think, by the way, I did like the statistical information that you had about the non-discrimination policies that the major companies had. I thought that that was a good piece of information. Pardon me. But on the last point, you had a datagram that you presented talking about blacks, women, and other groups, and I have no idea how I'm supposed to be applying that datagram to the subject that you're talking about. I didn't think that there was a very clear explanation on that. So I'm sure that there's some relevance to it, but the way in which it was communicated was not as effective as it needed to be. All right, so there's some good evidence, explanations, good on the first point, not quite as strong on the second and third point. It's well organized, and I thought that you gave it enough context to see why there's an argument there. All right, thank you.